Hi, my name is Jenny Lauren Dowden for Conduit News, and today we have Professor Robert Steinbuch joining us. Many of you know him. He is a law professor at the UALR Bowen School of Law, but of course, he's here today representing his own views and opinions. Hi, thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you again, Jenny. It's been a while.
I know, yeah, it's great having you back on Conduit. There are two things that I want to ask you about that I think our viewers would be really interested in hearing and learning more about. You and several of your colleagues and friends, such as Chris Corbett, are heavily involved in 2A issues. And most recently, ASU wrongfully told enhanced concealed carry licensee that this person could not come in their facility into the arena for a business expo. What do you know about that?
Yeah, well, I've spoken to the individual to whom it happened, in fact, and it's really remarkable. They told him, nope, not allowed in. And ASU has communicated that the reason the person wasn't allowed in was because A, the area is covered by an Alcohol Beverage Commission permit, which allows alcohol service, of course, and that this makes that arena a private club, and therefore firearms are not allowed. Now, that's reason one, it's entirely false. And then reason two, the arena is designated rather as a safety sensitive area in accordance with state law on guns on campus. Also entirely false. So let's take the first one, that somehow having an ABC permit makes a public facility a private club. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't it be great? All you do is university calls up, hey, ABC, we want to serve alcohol here. Okay. Well, now you're a private club. So that's just like, I don't know how to unpack a sentence like that other than to tell you virtually every word in it is not valid when strung together that way. Each word has independent meaning, but when strung together like a sentence, it's entirely not true. So that there is no such exemption, no public facilities converted into a private club. This isn't, 1928. Not that that happened in 1928, but you might imagine some sort of nonsense coming up a century ago, but not like that, not now. Yeah. And then the second point, which is actually a little bit more insidious, I would posit, because the law allows for designated safety sensitive areas or words to that effect, only in 3 locations: hospital, UAMS in its entirety, because that's broader than just a hospital, and during a sporting event, any place during a sporting event. Well, an arena hosting a business expo don't fit any of those.
Right.
And of course, again, if they could just designate any area as a specialized safety area or whatever the term is, they would have designated everything, right? Because for the most part, administrators in higher education are left of center and they don't like guns. And that's why it took several iterations for the legislature to pass the law that they passed that took away from administrators the veto right that they should have never had in the first place, because after all, we own those locations as taxpayers, and administrators' jobs are to do exactly that, administrate on our behalf, not to dictate to us what we may do on public property. And so the law had to be revised to reflect that notion. Charlie Collins was the lead legislator to do that, and the law does not give the power now to those administrators. So that's entirely wrong. And look, this is part of a broader context, and it's not only ASU, right?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Yeah, you've been on this show talking about this before with other organizations.
Right. So we have 2 things going on, right? We have other state and local entities denying Second Amendment rights, what I call Second Amendment rights, meaning gun rights. They're broader than just the Second Amendment. But gun rights, we have, I'm the attorney on 3 lawsuits, one against Little Rock City Hall, one against Game and Fish that told my client, who you know, Chris Corbett, he can't bring a gun into the office at the gun range. So just go leave it out front. And by the way, I've since learned that all the guys that work inside the office, they're carrying guns. So the only person not carrying a gun in the office at the gun range is the taxpayer. The employee can carry guns, but the taxpayer can't. Right. And then the last
Isn't
one
that
is
the hypocrisy, though, of the elite? They're all surrounded by armed security, but yet they're calling, to strip Americans of their gun rights. That's what they do.
that's exactly right. Right. It's what we call often limousine liberals. I don't know if these people are liberal, but the point is, it's very easy when you drive around in your limousine and when you go to your gated community to tell people who don't drive around, aren't chauffeured around, and don't live in a gated community how open they should be.
Right. Yeah.
In the last case, by the way, is guns. Lawyers are entitled, due to a change in law, to carry guns in courthouses. And so far in Pulaski County, they have denied that opportunity as well.
Well, what is this? So this person that went to ASU and they told him that he could not carry there in the arena. What is he going to do? Any next steps? Are they going to hold ASU accountable or try to get clarification?
I fear that the only thing that will straighten this out is another lawsuit, a fourth lawsuit that I will bring as the authority on gun rights in Arkansas. So I don't know is a short answer to your question.
Yeah.
But
well,
in terms
we'll follow it.
Yep, I'll keep you updated.
Well, there's something else that I want to ask you about. You've been on Conduit a number of times. It's been a few months, but talking about your time at the Bowen School of Law, discrimination issues there. You are certainly one of the most outspoken professors that I know locally. How are things going at UALR? Has anything happened with the complaint that you filed a few months ago? Any new developments?
Well, sadly, yes, perhaps is a way to answer that question.
Yeah.
Now, rewind, let me give you a little bit of history. You'll remember about a year ago, I would say, maybe a little longer, all of a sudden, a colleague of mine discovered that the dean and another professor started calling one of these positions we have at the law schools, and they're called named professorships. The person who becomes a named professor has to meet certain criteria, and they vary depending on which one it is. And they get over $10,000 in extra pay. And one of them that has existed for 20 years, and it was called some anodyne title. All of a sudden, the dean and this other professor started calling it the Bill Clinton.
That's right. Okay, I remember that. Yes.
Professorship. I was like, wait, what? And my colleague, by the way, is the one who discovered it. It wasn't even me.
Yeah.
And my colleague's a Democrat. Not a big fan of Clinton, mind you, but a Democrat. Right. And he said, how'd this happen? And, and he wasn't answered, first of all. And so I raised the question, and I simply said, can you answer Tom Sullivan's questions, essentially? And they said, oh, well, it was always supposed to be done this way. And clearly that wasn't the case. And I knew it wasn't the case because I came on board only shortly after it was established. And I knew the history, having talked to people who lived through it contemporaneously.
Yeah.
And so I continued to press on this question. And indeed, at one point, the dean wrote me, I'm not going to continue to respond to this line of discussion because I've made my position clear. I did want to point out to both of you, me and my colleague, what should be obvious at this point. Your colleagues are not interested in the naming of this professorship. Okay, well, first of all, I knew some who were, but really, is that the test? So you've kind of hijacked the title of this name professorship, and whether or not someone else is interested in your hijacking is the measure. Okay. Yeah, and then, by the way, you'll love this, Jenny. She says, Rob, it's my understanding you inquired about teaching at the Clinton School of Public Service, which I may have done in terms of to be an adjunct professor. I'd be happy to bring some conservative thought there. I really would.
I don't think they want you.
Right. I think you're right. But here's what she said. I find it odd that you would be so concerned with the merits of President Clinton and any honors directed at him by the Bowen Law School when you've asked to teach at a school named after him. Really? Because I also travel through the Clinton airport and I'm willing to do so. Here's the difference. A, I'm a decision maker, hopefully not in practice, at the Bowen Law School because I'm a member of the faculty. And B, Clinton had his bar license taken away. Right. So there's a real connection there, right? But I would prefer if the airport wasn't named after Bill Clinton, but I'm not involved in naming the airport, right? So sure enough, fast forward, and when this issue made it to the legislature and they called a hearing on this, the chancellor of the whole university wrote the chair of that committee that was holding a hearing and said, our records show that a decision was made not to use the Clinton name in the professorship back when it was created. Really? You mean exactly what I said from the get-go? Before I was dismissed, before my motives were questioned, before I was told that nobody cares about this? You know who did care about it? The legislature. You know who ultimately cared about it? The chancellor. So, you know, it's not a good look, Ginny. Let's put it that way. Right. So then immediately thereafter starts the semester. And as I've done for 20 years, I had a guest lecturer cover for me, by the way, a federal judge, cover for me.
That.
Remember that, right? When I was out for Jewish observance.
Right.
It's coming up, by the way. The Rosh Hashanah is next week, and the week after is the Day of Atonement, known as Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year. And so I did this, and I was told by the dean, "You can't do that." Wait, what? I can't do that? Oh, well, okay. Here's the rule that says I can have a guest speaker give a presentation related to the subject matter in my absence. There's the rule. And I was told, oh, that rule applies to things like power outages. I got to tell you, Jenny, I don't even know what that means. I would have a guest lecture if there's a power outage.
Right.
Because I couldn't make it. Where's the power outage? At my house? Like, I don't even know what that means. Right. So this went to a 3-person panel of professors, 2 of which chosen by the administration, and they unanimously found in my favor. In fact, they said that for the dean to not allow me the opportunity constitutes religious discrimination if not allowed for the 2022 spring semester, which of course would be the next Jewish holiday.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a pretty big statement, isn't it?
Right. Okay, so that leads us. Well, go ahead.
Well, and then virtually immediately, almost immediately thereafter, was supposed to be the named professorships. You know, I referred to that one that was improperly called Clinton. Well, these are on a cycle, and so they have to be reopened and competed. So they're supposed to be competed around January. Come June, I write the dean and I say, hey, why aren't these competed? What's going on? And she goes, well, there's only one opening anyway. Oh, okay. By the way, there are 4, not 1, 4. And in fact, she comes back later after I said, no, there's at least 1 more. And she goes, no, there are 4. You're right. There are 4 openings. I'm going to compete the first one. I'm not going to compete the other 3. Wait, what? By the way, one of the other 3 is held by her. And she says about that one and one of the others, I'm going to extend the term, which is a 4-year term, to a 5-year term. Wait, what? So first of all, you're going to extend a term that applies to you?
Right.
That's a conflict of interest.
I'd say so.
Right? That's a simple, even if you had the power to extend it, if it applied to somebody else, it's a conflict of interest to extend it for yourself. And I said, but
just like
what's
a lack of accountability there?
And then I said, what's your power to extend these in any event? She said, oh, well, there's a rule that says if we generate more named professorships, then the existing ones can be lengthened from 4 years to 5 years. The notion, I gather, being, well, if you have a bunch, you don't need to rotate them all as quickly. Okay. So I said, what new ones have you generated? Right? Because that's what the rule says. And the rule is unambiguous. By the way, just as unambiguous as the rule on me having a guest lecturer that required us to go to a hearing panel for the hearing panel to say, Steinbuch's right.
Yeah.
And so I said, what have you created? She goes, well, we have one in the works. Oh, you mean one that hasn't been created, one that hasn't been generated. Okay, so let's put the one that hasn't been generated to the side because you've conceded that that's not generated. It's almost like it's not a good look again, right? And then what's the other one? Oh, well, we have one called the Alzheimer professorship. The Alzheimer professorship. Did you look on the website? Our website reflects the fact that thing is created in 1981, I think, 81 or 83. That thing's 40 years old. That's your new one? I have no explanation for that. The guy who first held it was a professor who's now a judge here in Arkansas, Morris Arnold. And he only worked here for a few years in it.
Yeah.
I think he got it in 83. So I have no explanation. Like, that's where we leave off. So I filed a complaint on that part inside the school, because that's still can be rectified in the school. And then the first one, she did compete, but that's a named professorship for the Arkansas Bar Foundation professorship, which requires 3 elements by design in the requirements of the rule: excellence in teaching, and wait for the next 2, excellence in scholarship in Arkansas law, and significant contributions to serving the bench, meaning judges, and bar, meaning lawyers, of Arkansas. And she gave that award to somebody else. And by no reasonable measure am I not the most qualified for excellence in scholarship in Arkansas law and significant contributions to serving the bench and bar in Arkansas. I also have, of course, excellence in teaching. But given that 2/3 of it focuses on Arkansas law, and I outstrip perhaps the rest of the faculty combined on Arkansas law, it's unreasonable. It's beyond unreasonable. And I filed a complaint on that as well in a different forum. That's filed with the Claims Commission, because no longer am I going to allow this kind of behavior to go unrebutted, unchallenged.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It seems as though, wow, you know what, we learned our lesson. We shouldn't have done this, but there's none of that. It's just, we're going to keep marching on. Let's hope that Steinbuch doesn't, raise a flag about anything. And then if we do, then we have to go back and say, oops, and correct it. But it's just it feels so intentional how they just skip over you or discriminate against you time and time again.
Yeah, well, if you look at these 3 incidents, right? The fake naming of a professorship after Bill Clinton, then the not affording me the opportunity that I'm entitled to under law and in internal rules regarding religious observance, and now the failure to fill 3 of the 4 named professorships, and the award of the one that was filled to someone else, they all involve me, right? They all involve me raising questions.
Yeah.
And it's real easy. Here's the problem. While I was the most qualified person to get the Arkansas Bar Foundation, after that person gets that one, and you still have 3 more open ones, well, 2 have current people sitting in them, but they would have to compete just like anybody else. And one that nobody holds because the person who held it retired. You hold those and you refuse to compete them. Why? Because you've got to compare my record against a competitor's record. And each time you do it,
want to hand that to you.
You don't want it. They don't want to do it. They don't want to do it.
Well, we certainly appreciate how you are always, regardless of consequence, wanting to hold people accountable, to bring transparency. I know that's not easy, and we certainly need more of that in our institutions. So we thank you for doing that, and you have to keep us posted on what comes of the complaint.
Of course, I'll keep you updated on a regular basis. I look forward to coming back on the show more quickly than last time. That's my fault. I've just been tied up. I know you've been interested in having me on, but I will make an effort to be a more regular guest on your wonderful show and the Conduit platform.
All right. Thank you so much. Talk soon.
Thank you.